My son lied about our vacation, but cutting $70,000 gave me freedom and a new life. I never thought I would say that out loud. For years, I believed that love meant giving time, giving effort, giving money, giving pieces of myself until there was almost nothing left. And when it came to my son, I never questioned a thing. He was my pride, my heart. The reason I woke up every morning and smiled, even when the days were heavy. I raised him alone after his father passed away. It wasn't easy, but when I saw his small fingers holding mine, I knew I had enough strength to face whatever came next. From a small rented house in Lahore to a modest home we could finally call our own. Every brick, every curtain, every meal was built with love and sacrifice. I often skipped things for myself, new clothes, jewelry, outings. But for him, nothing was ever too much. When he wanted something, I found a way. He grew fast. Too fast, perhaps? Before I could even realize, he had become a young man with dreams bigger than our world. He got married. I remember the day he brought his wife home. She was beautiful, quiet, polite, but with eyes that spoke more than her words ever did. I thought she would be like a daughter to me. For the first few months, everything felt peaceful. I cooked for them, cleaned, and made sure they were comfortable. I didn't mind the long days or the quiet evenings. But soon, I began to notice small changes the way she looked away when I spoke. The way my son avoided eye contact when she was around. One day, she said something that stayed in my heart like a thorn. "Amy," she said softly, "I think you should rest more. Maybe spend some time at your sister's house. We'll manage here." It wasn't cruel, not directly, but it was enough to make me realize I had become an extra chair in the room, something that took space but wasn't needed anymore. Still, I smiled. I told her, "Of course, Beta. You're right. I'll visit for a while." And I did. I stayed away for weeks telling myself they needed their privacy. I called sometimes, but my son was always busy. "Amy, I'll call you back," he'd say. Work is hectic. Then one day, he called. His voice was sweet, almost careful. "Amy, we're planning a family vacation. We want you to come with us. You deserve a break." My heart fluttered like it used to when he was small. "Where, Beta?" I asked. "Malaysia," he said. "A beautiful place, beaches, peace, and rest. You'll love it." I didn't care about the destination. I just wanted time with him. With them, then came the request. "Emmy, we're short on some money for tickets and booking. I'll pay you back after we return. Maybe 70,000. I didn't even blink. I transferred it the same day. My savings money I had put aside for emergencies, quietly, over years. It was my safety, my comfort. But at that moment, my love spoke louder than my sense. Weeks passed. The house was silent. No calls, no updates. I imagined them laughing somewhere under a golden sun. I pictured him smiling at his wife, holding her hand, maybe buying her souvenirs. I waited for his call to hear Amy. It was wonderful. When he finally came, his face was different. Happy, but guarded. "How was it?" I asked eagerly. He looked at his wife, then said, "It was okay, Amy. We didn't go. Plans changed. We just stayed here." I froze. Stayed here? I didn't understand. "But Beta, the tickets, the bookings?" He smiled faintly. "We'll talk later, Amy. Don't worry about it." Something inside me went still. Later that night, as I cleaned the kitchen, saw a photo on social media, them smiling by a beach, clear blue water behind them. The caption read, "A dream come true." I stared at that screen for a long time. My hands trembled, but no tears came. It wasn't just the money. It was the lie, the ease with which he hid it. The thought that his mother, the woman who had given him everything, had become someone he could deceive so easily. Scene Q, gentle background piano. Fade into soft rain sounds outside window. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, watching the rain hit the glass. I remembered his small voice from years ago, "Amy, when I grow up, I'll buy you a big house and never let you be sad." I smiled at that memory, but it hurt too much to hold. Days turned into weeks. We spoke, but something had changed. There was distance in every word. I never mentioned the money again. Maybe part of me still wanted to protect his pride. Or maybe I just didn't want to lose him completely. But inside began to change. Quietly, slowly. I started taking long walks. I began cooking only for myself. I opened my old savings book and looked at what was left. It wasn't much, but it was something. I realized something that night sometimes. Love becomes a chain we put around our own neck. We hold it so tightly that we forget to breathe. So I did something unexpected. I withdrew the little money left in my account. I paid off small debts, bought myself new curtains, a small radio, and a second-hand sewing machine. For the first time in years, I made decisions without asking anyone. The freedom felt strange at first, like walking barefoot after a lifetime in tight shoes. But slowly it felt good. When my son came again weeks later, he noticed. "Amy, you changed the house," he said. I smiled. "Yes, Beta. I needed a change." He looked uncomfortable, almost guilty. "I'll return your money soon," he said. I shook my head gently. "Keep it. Maybe one day you'll understand its worth." He didn't reply. He just looked away. And in that silence I understood I had lost something, but also gained something else. Scene Q. Morning sunlight through the window. Gentle tabla and violin strings. Freedom doesn't always come wrapped in happiness. Sometimes it comes in the quiet understanding that you deserve peace. I began to live differently. I joined a small women's group in our neighborhood. We cooked together, shared stories, sometimes laughed, sometimes cried. One of them, an old widow like me, said something I'll never forget. "You can't fill anyone's cup if yours is always empty." Oh, those words stayed with me. I thought about them every night before sleeping. Months passed. My son called less, but I was no longer waiting by the phone. When he did visit, he seemed distant. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe life had changed too much for both of us, and yet I didn't hate him. I couldn't. A mother's heart doesn't work that way. Instead, I prayed. Not for him to return my money, but for him to find the truth of life, that love isn't measured by gifts, or vacations, or money, but by honesty and respect. Sometimes late at night, I still remember the sound of waves. I never went on that vacation, but I imagine the sea often. I picture it calm and endless, like forgiveness wide enough to hold everything, even the pain that once felt too heavy to carry. Maybe one day he'll understand. Maybe one day he'll sit across from me, hold my hand and say, "Amy, I'm sorry." Till then, I live. I breathe. I make my tea in the morning and sit by the window watching the world move. The pain is still there. It's like a scar that never fades. But it doesn't hurt the same way anymore, because somewhere between losing 70,000 rupees and finding myself, I realized something powerful. I never really lost anything that mattered. Life has a way of testing you quietly. It doesn't always come with storms or loud voices. Sometimes it comes through silence, a silence that fills your home and sits beside you at dinner after that day. I stopped asking questions. I no longer waited for explanations or apologies. I realized that asking for truth from someone who has already chosen lies is like waiting for rain in a desert. You learn to stop expecting the clouds. But deep inside, a small ache stayed. A mother's love is strong, but it's not unbreakable. There are tiny cracks that appear when trust is broken, and though you try to hide them, they whisper in moments of quiet. I tried to keep myself busy. I stitched clothes for the neighborhood children. I started growing plants in the small veranda outside. Watching something grow from my care reminded me that life still responds to love. Even if people Dan singled quotes to one afternoon, I got a call from my son. His voice was different, heavy. "Amy," he said, "I wanted to tell you something." My heart tightened. "What is it, Beta?" "We're moving abroad," he said. "It's for work. Maybe for a few years." There was a long silence. I felt my hands tremble. "Oh," I whispered, "that's good, Beta. I'm happy for you." He sighed softly. "Amy, you'll be fine, right?" I forced a smile he couldn't see. "Of course. Allah is with me." When he hung up, the room felt emptier than before. I looked around at the clock ticking, at the curtains gently moving in the air. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same anymore. That night I sat in the dark. The house was so quiet that even my heartbeat sounded loud. I remembered the years I spent praying for his success. And now success meant distance. Oceans between us, time zones, long silences. I didn't cry. Not that night. I had already used up all my tears. Seeing Q, faint city sounds fading to silence. Then soft wind chimes. Months passed. I learned to live alone. I learned to enjoy my tea without waiting for someone to join me. I learned that loneliness isn't always empty. Sometimes it's a clean space where peace can finally breathe. Then one day, Linda, I received a letter. The envelope was thin, but the handwriting was his. I opened it carefully, as if afraid the paper might dissolve in my hands. "Amy," it said, "I know I've hurt you. I can't find the right words, but I think about you every day. I don't know why I lied. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I didn't want you to see how much I was struggling. The vacation wasn't what you think. It was an escape from debts, from stress, from myself. I used the money to clear some of our loans. I should have told you the truth. I'm sorry." I read that letter again and again. My eyes blurred, not just with tears, but with memories. I held the paper close to my chest, and for a moment, I felt like I was holding my son again, the boy who used to run to me when he fell, the boy who used to promise he'd take care of me someday. I whispered softly to the empty room, "It's all right, Beta. I forgive you." And I meant it. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. Scene Q, soft piano and faint rain in the background. That night, I took out my old diary. It had been years since I had written in it. I opened a blank page and began to write. Today I learned that love doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. Sometimes it becomes a prayer. Sometimes it becomes silence. And sometimes it becomes strength. When I closed the diary, I felt lighter, as if the weight that had been pressing on my heart finally found a place to rest. Days became weeks again. I didn't hear from him often, but when I did, his voice carried something new. Gentleness, maybe guilt, maybe understanding. I didn't ask for details. I didn't ask about the money. I had already let it go. Instead, I talked to him about small things. The jasmine plant that finally bloomed. The new neighbor's child who called me auntie. The radio songs that reminded me of old days. He would listen quietly. Sometimes I could hear him sniff, as if trying to hold back emotion. One evening, he said something that melted the last bit of ice between us. "Amy," he said, "I wish I could undo everything." I smiled through my tears. "You don't need to, Beta. Just live better now." That was all I wanted, for him to live honestly, kindly. Scene Q, dusk light, soft call to prayer in distance. A year later. He sent me a ticket, not for Malaysia this time, but to visit him abroad. My heart was unsure. Part of me was afraid to go. What if I felt unwanted again? What if old wounds reopened? But something inside me whispered, "Go. You've forgiven him now. Let yourself heal completely." So I went. The moment I saw him at the airport, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, quieter. He hugged me tightly, tighter than he had in years. And in that hug, all the pain, all the anger, all the distance disappeared like mist in the morning sun. We drove home. His wife greeted me politely, and for the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Not arrogance, not pity, but respect. Maybe time had softened her too. That night, my son made tea for me. He brought it himself the same way I used to bring it to him when he was a boy studying late. I smiled and said, "You remembered how I like it." He nodded. I never forgot Amy. I just forgot how much it meant. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our tea. The air felt peaceful. Not perfect, not how it once was, but real. Before going to bed, he handed me a small envelope. "I've been saving," he said, "for you." Inside was a check, $70,000. I looked at him and smiled. "Beta, I don't need it. He looked back, eyes shining. I know, Amy, but I do. He wanted to give back. Not just the money, but the trust, the love he had broken. And in that moment, I realized something even deeper. It wasn't about the money at all. It was about healing what money had once damaged. Scene Q. Gentle piano and soft morning birds. I stayed with them for a few weeks. We talked more than we had in years. We cooked together. We even laughed. The past didn't vanish, but it stopped hurting. It became a story, something we had survived. When I returned home, I brought no gifts, no souvenirs, only peace. And that was enough. Now, when I sit by my window with my tea, I think about life differently. I used to believe love meant giving until I had nothing left. Now I know it means giving without losing yourself. Sometimes we learn the hardest lessons from those we love the most. My son's lie broke something inside me, but it also rebuilt me into someone stronger, quieter, wiser. If I could speak to every mother listening to this story, I would say this: don't be afraid to let go when holding on starts to hurt. Don't be afraid to love from a distance. And don't be afraid to choose peace over pride. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing your heart from the weight of what you cannot change. I never did get that vacation I dreamed of, but in a way, I did find one. A vacation from pain, from guilt, from silence. A journey into my own peace. Scene Q, closing soft piano fades. Background rain sound, voice gentle and reflective. Now I live simply. My son calls often. Sometimes we don't talk about much, just weather, food, memories. But each call feels like a small bridge built over the distance that once separated us. And every time he says, "Amy, take care," I feel warmth return to a place that once felt frozen. I still miss the boy he once was. I still miss the years when his small hand fit in mine. But now I understand that love doesn't end, it just changes shape. Maybe that's what freedom truly is. Not walking away, but walking forward with peace in your heart. Because sometimes losing $70,000 is the price you pay to find yourself again. It's been 3 years now since that time. Sometimes when I water my plants in the morning, I find myself thinking about the woman I used to be. Always waiting, always worrying, always giving without pause. That woman lived for everyone except herself. She was gentle, yes, but she was also afraid of being alone, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid that if she stopped giving, love would stop coming. Now I understand something deeper. Love doesn't disappear when you create boundaries. The people who truly care will stay, even when you stop sacrificing yourself for their comfort. Every morning, I walk to the small park near my house. The same park where I used to take my son when he was small. I sit on the same bench under the same neem tree and I watch the children play. Their laughter fills the air. And sometimes I close my eyes and imagine I can hear my son's laughter among them. One morning, a little girl came up to me and handed me a flower. "Auntie," she said, "you look like my Nani." Ah. I smiled and took the flower. "Thank you, Betta," I said softly. "Your Nani must be a very lucky woman." She laughed and ran back to her friends. I sat there holding that small flower, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Gratitude. For all the pain, all the lessons, all the strength that grew quietly inside me when I thought I was breaking. Scene Q. Soft piano with light morning birdsong. I remember how I used to fear silence. When my husband passed away, the house felt too quiet. When my son got married, I filled my days with noise just to keep from feeling lonely. But now, silence has become my friend. It's in silence that I listen to my own thoughts. It's in silence that I find peace. Sometimes I sit in my small living room and listen to old songs on the radio. Songs my husband used to hum. Songs that carry old memories, like faded photographs. I don't cry anymore when I hear them. I smile instead because I realize how lucky I was to have known love in so many forms. As a wife, as a mother, as a woman rediscovering herself. One evening, my son called. His voice was warm. "Ami, ho." Scene Q. Nighttime ambience. Soft rain begins. A few months ago, my son sent me a photo. It was of his family, him, his wife, and their newborn daughter. She had his eyes. He wrote a short message. Amy, her name is Aisha. I want her to grow up with your strength. I held that photo close. My eyes filled with tears, but this time they were gentle tears. Not of pain, but of pride. I whispered, may she never have to learn strength the hard way. I think that's how life works. It teaches you through loss what you could never have learned through ease. It breaks you just enough to show you what you're made of. That's $70,000, which once felt like the biggest loss of my life, became the price I paid for freedom. Freedom from dependence, from illusions, from my own fear of living for myself. Now, when people ask me if I regret helping my son, I smile and say, no, because if I hadn't lost that money, I might never have found myself. Scene Q. Gentle flute melody blending with soft piano. Some nights, I still dream about that vacation, the one we never took together. I imagine myself walking alone on a quiet beach. The sky is soft and pink, the waves gentle. I can feel the wind on my face. In that dream, I don't feel sad. I feel light. I walk along the shore, leaving footprints that disappear behind me. It's as if the ocean is whispering, let go. When I wake up, I realize that dream is not about a place. It's about peace. Maybe that's the true vacation I needed all along, not in another country, but within my own heart. Scene Q. Fade into morning sounds, birds chirping, kettle boiling softly. Every morning now begins the same way. I boil water, make tea, and sit by my window. The world outside moves fast, cars rushing, people hurrying, but I sit still, grateful for the quiet rhythm of my days. Sometimes neighbors stop by. They talk about their families, their struggles, their children. I listen and I tell them, be kind to yourself. Don't give more than your heart can hold. One woman once asked me, Auntie, how did you forgive your son? I smiled gently and said, because I saw myself in him. Once, I too made choices from fear. Forgiveness is just another word for understanding. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I think we all carry stories like mine, stories of love, disappointment, and slow healing. We just don't talk about them enough. Scene Q. Late evening, soft candlelight. If I could speak to my younger self now, that woman who once cried quietly in the dark, feeling unwanted and betrayed, I would hold her hand and whisper, you will survive this. You will even smile again. Because that's the truth of life, even after the deepest heartbreak. There is always something left, a small spark, a reason to start again. I've learned that peace doesn't arrive all at once. It comes softly, like dawn, one light at a time. Now, I no longer measure my life in money lost or mistakes made. I measure it in moments of peace, in breaths without pain, in the quiet pride of knowing I rebuilt myself. Scene Q. Final fade out, emotional piano melody, swelling gently. And so, this is my story, a story of love, lies, loss, and freedom. A story of a mother who gave too much, and then learned to give to herself. If you're listening to me right now, remember this. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to forgive without forgetting, because sometimes the greatest act of love isn't what you give to others, it's what you finally give to yourself. And that, my dear, is how I found my new life. Soft piano fades, gentle silence. The story ends on calm reflection. Sometimes, I wonder if pain ever truly leaves us, or if it simply learns to rest quietly in the corners of our heart. These days, when I sit alone in the stillness of my small apartment, I realize something. I am not lonely anymore. I am alone, yes, but it's a different kind of alone, a peaceful kind. It's the kind where you can hear your own thoughts and not be afraid of them the first time. I laughed again, really laughed, was unexpected. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. I had spilled tea on my clothes, the kettle had boiled over, and everything felt chaotic for a moment. But instead of sighing, instead of crying, I just laughed. A long, deep, honest laugh that came from somewhere buried under years of silence. And in that moment, I knew healing had begun without asking for permission. Scene Q. Sunlight through window curtains. A slow instrumental hum of flute and strings. I began to fill my days with small, beautiful things. I joined a local women's circle where we share stories over chai. Some are widows, some are divorced, some are just tired of being invisible. Every week we meet under the old banyan tree in the park. We sit on mats, share snacks, and talk about everything: childhood memories, recipes, mistakes, forgiveness. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as someone's mother or someone's wife, but simply as me. There's a kind of magic that happens when women come together without judgment. We remind each other that it's okay to be soft and strong at the same time. We remind each other that starting over doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally chose yourself one day. A young girl from our group, maybe 23, asked me quietly, "Auntie, when does the pain stop?" I looked at her and said, "It doesn't stop suddenly. It fades slowly, like the sound of rain after a storm. One day you realize the thunder is gone, and only the calm remains." She nodded, tears in her eyes. That's when I realized maybe this was my new purpose. Not just to survive my story, but to use it to guide others through theirs. I started helping at a local community center, mentoring young women, teaching them basic budgeting, emotional awareness, and how to build strength without guilt. It felt healing to speak about things I once hid, the lessons, the regrets, the truths that took me years to learn. Scene Q. Mid-morning ambience. Faint sounds of laughter and conversation. There's a small corner in the community library where I often sit now, surrounded by shelves of old books. Sunlight pooling across the floor. Sometimes I write letters to people who hurt me, not to send, but to release what still lingers. Letters to my husband, thanking him for his love. Letters to my son, telling him I understand his choices. Letters to myself, apologizing for the years I forgot my own worth. Each word feels like a breath of freedom. Each page feels lighter than the last dot, and when I walk home afterward, I pass a street musician who always plays the same old tune on his flute. At first, I didn't pay attention, but now every time I hear that melody, it feels like life's gentle reminder that even in repetition, beauty exists. Scene Q. Evening light turning golden. Faint sound of wind in temple bells. The world hasn't changed much. People still hurry. The seasons still pass. But I've changed in ways that words can't quite capture. Now, when I look at the sky, I don't ask for anything. I simply say thank you for all that was taken and all that was given. Sometimes my son still visits. He comes with his wife and daughter, and we sit together on the balcony. The little one runs around calling Nane Nani. Her laughter fills the air like music. My son watches me quietly, maybe with a bit of guilt in his eyes. But I never mention the past. Instead, I offer him tea and say, "How's work, Beta?" He smiles, maybe relieved that I no longer hold anger. I don't need to remind him of what happened. Life already has. Forgiveness, I've learned, is not for the one who hurt you, it's for the one who carries the hurt. Scene Q. Night, soft rain. Candle flickering on desk. Sometimes, before sleeping, I open my old diary again. The first page still carries the words I wrote long ago. Forgiveness is freedom. But now I've added another line below it. And freedom is coming home to yourself. I think is the heart of everything. We spend our whole lives trying to belong to others, our children, our partners, our families. But one day, life pushes us to return home, to our own hearts. Our own peace. I don't regret the $70,000 anymore. That money was a chapter, not the whole story. What I found afterward was priceless. Scene Q. Dawn light breaking softly over the city's skyline. As I stand by the window one morning, holding my cup of tea, I watch the city wake. The streets are alive, the sky painted with orange and gold. I whisper a small prayer, not for wealth or love, but for peace, for myself, for my son. For every mother who's ever given too much and received too little. Because that's what mothers do. We love endlessly. But sometimes we must also learn when to let go. And maybe that's what my story really is, not about betrayal or loss, but about awakening, about finding beauty in the ruins and realizing that nothing truly breaks us unless we stop believing we can heal. So, if anyone ever asks me now what freedom feels like, I will smile softly and say, it feels like breathing without waiting for someone to notice. Scene Q. Final gentle fade, flute and rain blending into silence. It's strange how silence sounds different after pain. Asterisk, before. It used to scare me, asterisk. Now it feels like a friend who sits beside me quietly. Holding my hand, I no longer rush to fill it with words or noise. I've learned that peace doesn't shout, it whispers. Asterisk sometimes when I look back. I realize how much of life I spent trying to keep everyone happy. Asterisk, I used to measure my worth by how much I gave, how much I sacrificed, how much I endured without complaining. Asterisk, but one day, life stood before me like a mirror and asked, and who are you beneath all that giving? I didn't have an answer then, but now I do. Asterisk, I'm the woman who survived love and loss, trust and betrayal, and still chose kindness. Asterisk, scene Q, soft breeze through window. Faint temple bell or azan in the distance. Asterisk, forgiveness taught me something sacred. That peace is not given. It's built brick by brick, tier by tier. Asterisk, every moment you choose understanding over anger. You lay one more stone on that path. Asterisk, and slowly, before you realize it, you've built a home inside your own heart. There are still nights when the memories visit, the laughter, the lies, the quiet dinners that followed, but they don't hurt the same way anymore. They're just shadows on the wall, reminders of a time that shaped me, and I let them pass. I don't fight my memories now. Asterisk, I let them sit with me for a while. Then I open the window and let them drift out with the breeze. Asterisk, that's how I heal, not by forgetting, but by accepting that some things were meant to end. Asterisk, scene Q. Morning slowly begins. Light spreading softly. Asterisk, these days. My mornings are simple. Asterisk, I make tea, water the plants on my small balcony, and watch the world come alive. Sometimes a little bird comes and sits on the railing. It chirps, eats a crumb, and flies away. Asterisk, and every time it does, I smile, because maybe that's what life is, a series of small visits. People come, bring a piece of themselves, and leave. Asterisk, and in between their arrivals and departures, we learn. Asterisk, I used to wish I could go back and change things. Maybe question my son sooner, protect my heart better. But now I don't wish that anymore, because every wrong turn led me here to this quiet, peaceful moment. And this moment is enough. Scene Q. Gentle rainfall begins, blending with piano and flute. Asterisk, you know? People often think strength means holding everything together. Asterisk. But true strength, I've learned, is letting go with grace. Asterisk, it's sitting in the middle of chaos and whispering, I'll be okay. Asterisk, it's walking away not because you stopped loving, but because you finally started loving yourself. Asterisk, the $70,000, it feels so small now. Compared to what I gained, it was just money. But the peace I earned, the lessons I learned, the strength I found, those are priceless. Asterisk, and if losing that money was the price for finding my soul again, then maybe it was never a loss at all. Asterisk, scene Q, dusk, the last light fades. Soft violin swells gently. Asterisk, I sometimes wonder if my son ever thinks about that day. Belai? The distance that grew between us? Maybe he does. Maybe one day he'll come to me, not as my child, but as a man who finally understands his mother's silence. Asterisk, when that day comes, I won't need explanations. Asterisk, I'll just hold his hand, and we'll sit quietly. Asterisk, two souls who took a long, painful road back to love. Asterisk, and if that day never comes, that's all right too, because I've learned to live with both hope and acceptance. They can exist side by side, like light and shadow. Asterisk, scene Q. Candle flickers. Rain slows, then fades. Asterisk, so tonight, as I close my eyes, I whisper a small prayer for every mother who gave too much, for every heart that broke quietly, for every soul still searching for peace. May they all find what I found, asterisk, not revenge, not validation, but peace. Asterisk, the kind of peace that feels like soft rain on tired skin. Asterisk, the kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone's apology. The kind of peace that says, you did your best. Now rest. Asterisk scene Q. Music fades to near silence. Only faint wind and breath remain. Asterisk, and that's how my story ends. Not with tears, but with calm. Asterisk, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because sometimes the greatest freedom comes when you stop asking, why me? And start saying, thank you, life, for teaching me. So if you ever lose something you thought you couldn't live without, remember this. Maybe it wasn't taken away from you. Maybe it was given back, asterisk, so you could finally come home to yourself. Asterisk, long pause. Soft piano ends with a single note. There comes a moment in every life when silence speaks louder than words. Asterisk for me. It was the moment I realized that forgiveness isn't about them. Asterisk, it's about you. Asterisk, it's about choosing peace even when no one says sorry. Asterisk, it's about smiling through tears. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've finally accepted. I used to think love was endless giving. Asterisk, now I know. Love is balance. Love is care with boundaries. It's knowing when to hold on. And when to quietly let go. It's saying, I love you, but also, I love me too. Asterisk scene Q. Light wind through trees. Faint temple bell in distance. If I could speak to the woman I was years ago, the one who stayed silent to keep peace, who believed sacrifice was her purpose, I'd hold her hand and whisper, you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to choose yourself. Asterisk, you were never selfish for wanting peace. Asterisk, because no one tells mothers that they are human too. Asterisk, that their hearts can break, that they can make mistakes, that they deserve gentleness just as much as they give it. Asterisk, and so, to every mother who listens to this, every woman who gave everything and was left with almost nothing, please remember this. You are more than what they took from you. You are the light that survived the storm. Asterisk. You are the prayer that still blooms in silence. Asterisk scene Q. Slow instrumental builds. Violins and piano intertwine softly. Asterisk I. Once believed freedom came from being needed. Now I understand freedom comes from being at peace with yourself, even when no one needs you anymore. It's in that quiet cup of tea in the morning. Asterisk. It's in your breath when you finally stop worrying. It's in the way your heart softens after years of hardness. That is real freedom. Asterisk, when I lost the $70,000, I thought life had punished me. Asterisk. But it was life that set me free. Asterisk, that loss broke the walls I had built around my soul. Asterisk, and through the cracks light came in. Asterisk, sometimes blessings don't arrive as gifts, they arrive as goodbyes. Scene Q. Gentle rain returns, slow, steady, peaceful. Asterisk, so if your heart is heavy right now, asterisk, if you're holding on to anger or grief or regret, breathe. Let it pass through you like the wind through open windows. Asterisk, the people who left, the promises that broke, they were not your ending. Asterisk, they were just the chapters that taught you how strong you could be. Asterisk, and when the world feels too heavy. Asterisk, when the memories ache too much. Just close your eyes and whisper to yourself, I am still here. I am still becoming, and I am still enough. Because you are. Scene Q. Piano softens. A faint sunrise glow through clouds. Asterisk, one day you'll wake up and the pain will no longer define you. Asterisk, you'll pour your tea, feel the sunlight on your face, and realize you've made it through the storm. You'll smile not because everything is perfect, but because you've finally made peace with imperfection. And in that quiet smile, you'll know what I now know, that the truest kind of love is the one that starts within. Asterisk. That the gentlest kind of healing is time. asterisk, and that every ending is just life's way of saying, asterisk, you're ready to begin again. The world looks new after rain. Even the walls seem to breathe. I sit by the window with my cup of tea, watching light fall on wet leaves. And I think maybe this is what healing looks like. Not loud, not sudden, just quietly appearing. Like sunlight finding its way through clouds. I used to chase happiness now. I let it find me in small moments asterisk in the smell of the earth after rain. Asterisk in the laughter of a child outside. In the stillness between two heartbeats. Soft pause. There was a time I prayed for my son to come home. Now, I pray that wherever he is kind. That he sleeps without guilt. That he learns. As I did, that truth always finds its way back. Asterisk and that love, when it's real, never leaves it, simply changes form. Asterisk sometimes I still set 2 cups on the table. Asterisk. Old habits are gentle ghosts. One for him, one for me. Asterisk. And in that empty cup, I pour forgiveness. Asterisk scene cue. Wind moves the curtains. Faint temple bell or azan tone. Asterisk people think endings are sad asterisk, but I've learned that. Endings are just beginnings. Wearing a quiet disguise, what breaks you also opens you. What leaves you also frees you. Asterisk and what hurts you also teaches you to hold the world with softer hands. Asterisk long pause. Only sound of rain outside. Asterisk if anyone ever tells my story, I hope they don't remember the lie or the money or even the pain. I hope they remember the woman who learned to smile again. Asterisk. The woman who lost almost everything. Asterisk. And still found the courage to love the world one more time. Asterisk scene cue. Music swells gently. Sunlight fills the room. Because life isn't about what we keep, it's about what we release and love. Real love doesn't always return to us. Asterisk sometimes. It simply teaches us how to stand alone. Asterisk. So, as the morning stretches into day, I whisper one last line to the quiet sky. I forgive you. My son, I forgive life, and I forgive myself. Asterisk scene cue. Piano slows. The sound of a single bird taking flight. The rain has stopped now. The air smells clean. Asterisk. And for the first time in a long time. You know, when I look back now, it feels almost unreal. Asterisk like the story I lived was someone else's. And I was just a quiet witness walking beside her. Asterisk. There were moments when I thought I would never smile again, when betrayal felt heavier than my own bones. But here I am. Still breathing, still alive, and somehow still hopeful. I used to think freedom was something you had to fight for. Now I know it's something you grow into, quietly. One brave day at a time. Asterisk, there was a time when my entire world revolved around my son. Asterisk. His happiness was my heartbeat. Asterisk, every prayer I said, every tear I shed was for him. Asterisk, when he lied, it wasn't just about the money. Asterisk, it was about the trust. That invisible thread that connects a mother's heart to her child's. Asterisk, and when that thread broke, it felt like my soul cracked open. Asterisk, but in that brokenness, something gentle was born, understanding. Maybe he wasn't trying to hurt me. Maybe he was just lost in his own fears, like I once was. We all make choices we can't undo. Sometimes we just need time to face the truth of them. Asterisk scene cue, distant thunder, then silence. Only the voice remains soft and close. Asterisk, when I let go of that money, it's when I stopped counting the loss, something beautiful happened. Asterisk, I started counting the things I still had. My peace, my memories, asterisk, my ability to love. Even after pain. Asterisk, we live so much of our lives waiting for apologies. For appreciation, for closure. Asterisk, but sometimes the person who needs to say sorry is the one in the mirror. Asterisk, I had to forgive myself for staying too quiet, for loving too blindly, for trusting without limits. Asterisk, that forgiveness was the beginning of my new life. Asterisk, I realized that letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start choosing peace over pain. It means you stop reopening the same wound just to check if it's healing. Asterisk scene. Cue, early morning birds begin to sing. Faint golden light filters in. Asterisk, now, when I see my son, I see the little boy he once was. Asterisk, the one who used to hold my hand and call me Amy with that innocent smile. Asterisk, and even though time has changed us both, a part of me still whispers a silent prayer for him every night. Asterisk, because love, real love, never truly disappears. Asterisk, it just learns to stand quietly in the background, hoping the other person finds their way. Asterisk, I don't know what the future holds. Asterisk, maybe one day he'll understand what his lie cost me. Asterisk, maybe he won't, but I'm not waiting for that day anymore, because my peace no longer depends on his truth. Asterisk, I have built a small world of my own with laughter, plants, teacups, and stories. I have learned that life doesn't end when people disappoint you. It begins again slowly, quietly, the moment you forgive them and choose to live anyway. Asterisk scene cue, soft instrumental swells. Sounds of rain fade into a gentle flute. Asterisk, if you're listening to this, if you've ever been broken by someone you love, I want you to know this. You will smile again. You will wake up one morning and realize the weight has lifted. Asterisk, and you'll understand that what you lost wasn't meant to stay. It was meant to guide you home to yourself. So don't rush your healing. Don't punish yourself for caring. Asterisk, and don't close your heart just because someone mishandled. It dots your softness is not your weakness. It's your greatest strength. Because in a world that can be cruel and loud, choosing to remain kind, gentle, and hopeful, that is real courage. Asterisk scene cue, night fades to dawn, birds, then silence. Asterisk, and maybe that's how I'll be remembered, not as the woman who lost $70,000, but as the woman who found herself. I found peace not in the world outside, but in the quiet place within where forgiveness lives, where love never ends, and where, finally, I came home to myself. Soft piano ends. A single raindrop sound. Fade out.